Hey, party people. Today I want to talk to you about why I don't recommend any brands. The short answer is I have no brand loyalty. I am loyal to no brands. And I recommend you also stop being loyal to any brands, and that not being loyal to brands is actually better for the fashion industry. And it's going to be one of the key ways that the fashion industry will improve. That's the short answer. If you want the long, geeky, industry deep dive answer, keep watching. Here's the thing, okay? When you have a design business, the lack of quality control across the company is abysmal. That's the overarching theme of this whole thing, okay? And there's so many things, so many aspects of fashion design businesses that feed into that. Number one, every department has its own product development team, its own tolerances, and sometimes their own production facilities. Okay? And you may have thought this to be true of like really giant businesses, but it's also true of really small businesses. I worked a job where the whole company did $250,000 in sales a year, okay, which is really, in the scheme of things, not much at all. And we still divvied up. Our silks went to Asia, okay? Our silks were dyed and printed in Korea and cut and sewn in China. And our cotton bottom weights were all done in the US, like down the street from us. Okay, so even our small business, we had divvied up the production. And so we're talking about different production, different people doing the tech packs, because the stuff we sent over to Asia, the factory was doing all of the product development and production, whereas we were really paying close attention and overseeing the product development and production of our cotton bottom weights down the street from us, right? I worked at this other company where we worked with several factories, some in India, some in China, some in the US, and they all got different assignments, so to speak, different items according to what kind of leather they were sewing and who what the resulting customer was going to be. That company had been around a minute and a half. And so my boss had a roster of, well, we have to make sure these customers, these wholesale accounts, get the best quality things, even if we eat a tiny bit of markup. And then these other brands, they can get the cheaper stuff, the slightly less high quality, that sort of thing. And so she strategized, where we were going to get more markup, because we were charging everyone the same for all these jackets, but some were coming from lesser factories using slightly less quality materials. And that's a norm everywhere. Everywhere. And I've had girlfriends work in much larger companies than I have ever worked at. I've never worked at like a giant corporate, many-pronged sort of company. I've had girlfriends be like, "Onye, don't buy anything from my department. Our product development team I don't even know what's going on there. And I hate my merchandiser." Like, they tell me all sorts of stuff. And then I'll have another girlfriend be like, "Yeah, our department keeps the whole company afloat." They tell me all this stuff. And I'm not going to tell you the brands, okay? All you should take away from that is this is the same conversations happen at every company, okay? If you take one company and you talk to all the people in the design and product development teams, you're going to hear them say, "Oh no, our team is the best. We have the tightest tolerances. We do everything right. Our patterns are the best." And, that department, they're the ones losing money. They need to replace their team. Okay, so all these different departments have different design and development teams, which means the quality of the products within these categories are all going to be different within the same brand. Okay. And the bigger you get and the bigger the company, the more divvied up it is. I think, Jenna Lyons has been on my radar because she's been coming out with these really great TikToks about fibers. But, her origin story is she started off at J. Crew as a designer. And she worked at this department, that department, this department, that department. She was making lateral moves as she was also getting promoted in her work history at J. Crew. So by the time she was creative director, she was familiar with a lot of different departments, which was probably a huge reason why she was so good at her job. She had been there. She knew how all the cogs at J. Crew worked. Okay. I've had friends who were design directors of the boys and men's knit bottoms department. Okay, that's how, separated these departments can be. So we have boys and men's knit bottoms are like sweatpants, track pants, basketball shorts, those stretchy mesh. And then we have boys and men's woven bottoms, which are more like cargo pants, board shorts, that sort of thing. Okay. And then we have girls and women woven bottoms, girls and women knit bottoms, girls and women knit tops. And they all have different teams. You may have heard how in my design lectures, I talk about designing in groups and how when you develop a design detail, that design detail is not going to always work on all the fabrications, and you should keep the design details kind of within each fabrication. So for example, let's say you're designing a collection and it's got leather jackets, it's got cotton blouses and wool trousers. Okay. Just work with me, okay? So all the leather pieces get triple needle top stitching. Actually, that is a terrible idea for leather. You're just basically perforating leather and making it really weak. Think about it. Let's say let's say all the leather pieces get a lot of hardware, a lot of grommets, rivets, big heavy zippers, okay? That's the big feature, That's not gonna work so well with wool bottoms like skirts and trousers or cotton blouses. So maybe the design feature on the cotton blouses are going to be many, many pin tucks and smocking. Okay, lots of smocking, lots of pin tucks. Okay, which wouldn't really work with leather. Who's tried to smock leather? Now I want to smock leather. Anyway. Okay, if you want to take like a thick woolen tweed and try to pin tuck thick woolen tweed, you could do a really thin tweed, okay? But there are just some, I'm not talking about let's stretch your imagination to come up with fabric manipulations that you really have to stress to the point of extremes to get it to work on all these different fabrications. The point is that some manipulations and design details work better for different fabrications. So I teach this kind of design grouping, but also that's how things work in larger fashion companies where someone is in charge of blouses and tops and another team is in charge of all the suiting, tailored blazers, tailored trousers, because that's a category of fabrications and fit and, design considerations that a person might have expertise in over, let's say, cut and sew knits. Okay. If you watched my interview with Melissa Calamia, we were talking about how we have different areas of expertise in terms of what kind of materials that we know. My areas of expertise are silks and leathers, and hers are performance fabrics, cut and sew knits, that whole world. Okay. So you have all these teams of different, and so, yeah, qualities are going to be different. And so when I know that these brands have all these varying teams making different products, I can't say, shop at XYZ brand. I just don't feel good about that. And even if I've bought 1 or 2 pieces from a brand, I just don't feel comfortable, making a blanket statement like that. Okay, here's another reason. Tolerances. Okay, there's this joke. It's not super funny or anything, but there's a joke. What's the difference between a Lexus and a Toyota? Tighter tolerances. Okay, so tolerances, if you watch my grading video last week, tolerances are like a margin of error that a brand will accept from a factory when they receive a sewn garment. So let's say you ask for a pair of pants that should have a 27-inch waist, and you have a 1/2 inch tolerance, okay? That means you could be receiving pants that are 26.5 inches at the waist, all the way up to 27.5 inches at the waist. A 1-inch span, technically those still come within tolerance, so they're acceptable, and then they get shipped off to the stores that bought them, and that's why you could try on 2 different pairs of pants that are supposedly the same size, but fit you completely different. How many of you have had that experience? Okay, so this is within one brand, within one category, there are all these tolerances. And really, honestly, there's nothing we could do about that. It's called human error. Robots do not sew, okay? Don't fight me on this. People want to fight me on this. Somebody wanted to fight me on this and sent me a video of human hands running a very complicated machine. And yeah, there are some really cool machines that do multi-step processes that we have never had before. Like really new technological advances in sewing production. It's still a pair of human hands running the machine. Okay? A tractor is a complicated machine still run by human hands because someone's going to drive the thing. Okay? So robots are not sewing. There's always going to be a margin of error. So there's that. But my whole thing, so there's that. And then, like, honestly, I don't even know what to talk about next because there's just so many things. But number one, TOP samples are a joke. They're not even samples. I don't even know why we bother with them. It's kind of like a cover my butt sort of thing that factories do, but whatever. So what TOP samples are, okay, TOP stands for top of production. And technically they're not a sample, okay? Top of production means, okay, so you have all your samples, right? And you've done all the iterations, you got the fit perfect, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you're ready to go into production. And you tell the factory, this style, pull the trigger. And then the factory starts cutting and sewing. And when they start sewing the garment, the final production run, they will ship you the first one off the line, the production line. Okay? Top of production, TOP sample. And I always laugh at this because it's like, what's the point? You're literally sewing right now. And so unless you have a massive order and they're sewing for days on end, they're sewing your order for days on end, by the time you get this sample, what are you going to do? Be like, oh, you got it wrong. I mean, yeah, it's like a emergency last lever sort of situation, but I mean, they're running production as the thing is shipping on its way, shipped to you. Okay, the only time that's ever like useful is if your production is being done down the street and someone couriers over a TOP same day. And you could be like, oh, wait, all these waistbands are going the wrong way. Okay? On top of that, okay, so technically, someone is supposed to, when the production comes in, okay, someone or a team is supposed to check about 5% of the production, okay? Just go in and randomly pull, not just the top of the bundles, but randomly pull 5% of the order and look them over to check on quality. They look over making sure that the color kind of matches what they're supposed to look like. They're not using some weird top stitching color. You know, the stitches look all right. They're supposed to measure it, make sure at least the main specs, chest, waist, hips, sleeve length, that sort of thing, the main specs are correct or within tolerance. Here's the thing though. Usually, not all brands, okay, but usually they relegate that sort of thing to whatever intern they have running around or the assistant designer. And they're the last people who should be checking on the quality. They know the absolute least out of the whole company. But people think that that's busy work, that anybody can measure something. And so they just leave it up to, but it should be somebody with experienced eyes who are giving it a look over. A lot of the time, assistant designers start their jobs and no one teaches them how to measure. Ask me how I know. Nobody taught me how to measure. So I had to fumble around and look stupid and ask people. The first time I tried to measure a sleeve, I didn't realize you were supposed to measure from center back. And I was just bewildered at how short the sleeve measurement was because I was measuring it from the shoulder. And I'm like, okay, it looks like a normal length sleeve, but the number on the spec sheet is so long. So to all of y'all who are like, hey, Zoe, can you throw out some names of brands? No, I really can't. Not in good conscience anyway. I am loyal to no brands. I check for quality of individual garments. And I recommend that you study quality of garments so that you can analyze for yourself. And why do I think that's good for the fashion industry? Because when you have a bunch of loyal fans to a brand, the brand gets lazy. Okay, they get lazy. And they're like, we have all these fans. They'll buy whatever poop we deliver, so we don't care. I bet you, those of you watching, I bet you a lot of you already had one or two names float up immediately of brands who got lazy because they had a loyal kind of fan base. Am I right? Okay. Drop them below if you want, if you're brave enough. But it happens all the time. And the less we are loyal to these brands, the more they have to stay on their toes to deliver you quality. And you don't owe these brands anything. You pay them and they give you something. That's already the exchange. Once you pay them the price for the item they're going to give you, we're zero. We're clean. Nobody owes anybody anything else. Okay? So you don't have to feel bad, okay? You're a customer, okay? You owe loyalty to your best friend who's been through thick and thin with you. And you owe loyalty to your mom who has supported and loved you throughout your whole life. You don't owe loyalty to brands who make stuff to sell them to you. Forget about it. I bet you your next statement is going to be, Zoe, can you make more videos going over quality? If you want me to make videos going over clothing quality, leave me a comment below. That's not really the focus of my channel, but it is, it's related. So I will give you a recommendation. My absolute favorite follow in terms of checking out and learning clothing quality is Andrea Cheong. I even bought her book, Why Don't I Have Anything to Wear? Spend less, shop smarter, revolutionize your wardrobe. So those of you who are not familiar with Andrea Cheong, I follow her on TikTok, but I think she's also on Instagram. And she makes videos of herself shopping at various stores, various price points, and analyzing the quality. And the thing I like about her is she doesn't really have brand loyalty either. She might, some, but she doesn't act like it. She doesn't just look at one collection from a specific designer and decide, hey, you guys, y'all should shop at this place because this one collection was good. No. She literally never says that. When a new drop comes in, she's like, hey, let's check out the latest collection from X brand. And she will pick apart, this jacket is good, this sweater, what's going on here? And she'll show you the poor quality of the sweater. And then she'll be like, oh, I like this fiber content. I like this label. I like how they did this collar. But I wish they had, like, she goes for quality. She doesn't really go, she doesn't make she doesn't make broad statements about, oh, this brand is good. She really goes in for showing the quality of individual garments. And in that, you can really learn to discern yourself quality. So while you are waiting for me to figure out how I want to formulate my kind of quality videos, I highly recommend you go seek out Andrea Cheong. I am going to drop her social media in the description box. And I think this is on my Amazon recommendations list. All right, y'all, those were all 103 reasons why I find it impossible to recommend brands to anyone. When people ask me, can you recommend a brand I should shop at? You know, what are some good sustainable brands? There's so many aspects to shopping, you know, honestly, which is probably why people just shop fast fashion. They're like, oh, I can either research for 17 hours or just buy this $17 dress. Everything's poop anyway, so let's just go full poop, very cheap. My answer to that is just stop buying so much stuff. If shopping is exhausting, just don't buy anything. That's what that's literally what I do. If I find myself being like, I can't figure out if this is a good, I just stop. I'll bookmark the tab for another day, or I just like, you know what? I'm not gonna buy it. This is why brands don't send me bags. This is why brands don't invite me anywhere. This is why. Anyway, I don't hate brands. I don't. There are a lot of brands that aesthetically, design-wise, I think are very cool. You know? I think they're doing really cool things in terms of design, but I can't support them with my dollars or recommendations wholeheartedly without seeing like individual garments and such. So that was my very geeky fashion industry deep dive reason as to why I don't do brand recommendations and I don't have any brand loyalty. Drop your video requests and your questions below, and I will see you in the next video.